Hello, beautiful, soulful beings. Today, you're going to receive an extensive teaching on the integration of thinking and feeling. I'm going to talk about this as it relates to masculine and feminine integration. And I'm also going to speak to this in a way that helps you make sense of collective tide themes, as in, why is this important now? How is it applying to where we are evolutionarily going? And then, so how can you apply it in your personal process? Like, why does it matter? As always, my teachings are invitations into embodiment. So you're meant to really take them in, to digest them inside of your life and apply them to your personal process. Transparently so, I am in my feels today. I'm in my feels in this moment. I am a feeler, feeler, feeler. You may also be a feeler at your base, but you might be a thinker. And you are intrigued by my teachings because they bring something through for you in a way that stimulates your mind. Regardless of your predisposition, the integration of both the mind, the mental body, and the emotional and feeling body is essential. We want to have both. We don't want to overuse one and then underuse another because it'll create these internal imbalances that will also mirror into our lived life, into things like our relationships. Feeling, as I teach it, is feminine. Thinking in the mind would be the masculine as a base code. And feeling is like heart and feminine. And it's also sensation. And it is this deep embodied wisdom that is here in the body, these sensations right here. A lot of times, men are called into states of dissociation because this patriarchal matrix places the mind above all else. Oh, the mind can control everything. Your beliefs can control everything. No, I'm sorry. That's just not accurate. To pedestal the mind above the feeling body is a representation of a core fractured belief that humanity is holding that places the masculine ongoingly above the feminine. So when we look at this societally, society will say, like, feelings are weakness. Like, you feeling that, that's you being in weakness rather than strength. And I'm going to drop into that today a little bit more to get us into what we're really being called into as far as this collective human evolution for 2025. So, men are taught that to disconnect from their emotions is strength. And part of the issue with this is when you disconnect from feeling sensation, you are fragmenting yourself. You are disconnecting yourself from the feminine essence, and she is feeling. And you also have to disassociate from your body because feelings also have sensations inside of the body. When we allow the mind to integrate in with the feeling body, where the feeling body is revered in the way that the feminine should be revered. So the mind actually will follow the sensations of emotions that are relative to these tides. It's like waves, right, that are coming in and out. So when I'm talking about collective tide themes, the reason why I can speak to you all about what is here, what's on the horizon, what's going to come. The reason why I can sense into evolutionary process, which by the way, I do that in my one-on-one work, and I do that on a collective level, presenting these kind of concepts here through this newsletter, also through my membership group. All of the reason why I can do that is because I trust in my feeling body and sensations. I'm able to intuit into these spaces, past, present, in future moments. I am receiving a lot of information ongoingly through feeling and through sensation. A lot of people, especially men, mistake this for the brilliance of my mind. I do have a very brilliant mind. And the reason why my mind is so brilliant is because it's integrated with my feeling body. So, as I teach that in my teachings, we call that the higher mind. The higher mind reflects the integration of feeling, the emotional body, and the mental and the thinking all together so that you can work with both of them. So I am not saying in this teaching transmission that the mind is bad or wrong. There's a lot of teachings that go around saying that. And now the mind can definitely trick us. Man, can it lead us into some fuckery? Like, woo, it's a very sensitive place in the fact that it is deeply infiltrated. So, like, for example, collective belief systems, conditioning, certain patterns that you might inherit from your ancestry, a lot of that comes through infiltrations of the mind because it's an easy place to infiltrate, to create fracture. Feeling is more unified because it brings in the feminine essence. And so the feeling sensations, and I'm not saying that people can't get into, um, like drop into their emotional body in a way that is unwise. So when I'm teaching this, I want you all to be paying attention. In all of my teachings, most of them, when I'm speaking to things that are masculine and feminine, we have to look at it from four quadrants, not two. Okay. It's not just masculine and feminine. What we're looking at is the true masculine, the true feminine, the wounded masculine, and the wounded feminine. So you can have a kind of state of being that is reflected through the wounded masculine through how someone is relating to their mind. What does that look like? Well, that looks like this is just a single example, okay? It looks like a man that is believing in his conditioning, and then he presents through this false egoic state. He pedestals himself above the feminine because that's what society has taught him. That's just a single example. So he could be using his mind through a lens of the wounded masculine. But then we have something like the higher mind. That's actually Father Sky. Father Sky is a part of the higher mind. There is a kind of God's eyes that can be imprinted onto your mind where what you see is truth through the illusion. That's the true masculine. So the ones who have done the work of deconditioning have had to pass through a lot of these beliefs and these structures, unravel and collapse them to arrive at truth itself. The mind follows the body. This is just fact. So when your body is regulated, your mind will follow the bodily sensations. It's just a kind of automatic thing. That actually presents this higher truth that I am speaking to and I ongoingly will speak to, which is that the feminine goes first. The feminine is meant to lead in these particular ways that she leads. If you let your mind control your life and you don't allow your feeling sensations to lead and guide you, you have a disconnection relative to integration of the feeling body that also separates you from things like your intuition. Feeling is like the ocean because the ocean water is feminine. So feelings can be very big, right? They're very big, 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 big. And oftentimes, what will happen is this is projected onto a female or the feminine as you're too much. You're too much. Your emotions are too much. What you see is too much. What you want is too much. You are too much. And what's so ridiculous about that is that if you can feel into the emotions and you feel into how massive and infinite they can be, like an ocean, the ocean is infinite and so is the feminine. She's meant to be the everything. When a man can learn, including in his intimate relationship, how his woman's emotions are a mirror to so much more of what's going on, to include what's going on inside of him, woo, can you leverage that for your evolutionary process? Because with these emotions being so infinite, like the ocean, you have to learn how to expand. You have to learn how to hold. You have to learn how to surrender. You have to learn to let go. These collective tides are going to be here regardless. We, in our human, we are not controlling the current of the goddess. We are not controlling these evolutionary tides that are moving through collective consciousness. All that we can do is surrender, let go, let it lead, listen, and apply. And that's what I teach, especially in the Integrative Evolutionary, my membership group. Definitely go click on the link and apply. So, when the mind surrenders its control and it lets go and relaxes into trust, and it descends, your consciousness, your attention descends into the body, it will begin to attune. You are here, you are being deeply present. All of this is coded, all of this is evolutionary process. Being descended and being in a process of decision is what the masculine is being called into, most especially. It just started and going into 2025. I have predicted this for 10 years. I have been talking about this for a very long time, and it's actually like the energetics are here. So if you have not gone back to my newsletter, I also shared the video on my social media, Man of Heart, Woman of Womb, Man of Heart, Woman of Womb, something like that. Definitely go watch that video, because this right here, what I'm teaching now, is a secondary part of this process that I started in that teaching over there. Many men are not moving through initiations that lead him through, like where he's really fully surrendering into the currents that are naturally finding him on his evolutionary process. And this doesn't allow his maturation. This also means that these mind structures that the masculine brings in, they're also not maturing. They're staying in states of like these behavioral patterns and conditioning. And when he is called into a deep ascension process, which, by the way, happens in tandem with a gravitational pull from what I term as the dark mother. So, this is actually a gravitational pull of the feminine that in some ways he has no control over it at all. Like he might have choice points, but he definitely doesn't have control. It's this gravitational pull that's just going to take him in and down. So many men are going to be affected by this, and so many of them are not going to know what's going on, and they're not going to know how to navigate through it, because that kind of terrain has been vastly occupied by the feminine. Like if I speak this to women, they get it, because they are initiation. They're constantly in initiation. They are constantly in unravel and release and let go and surrender. And they're also connected to this larger, the larger collective feeling body, because they're feminine base code. So they understand what it is for the currents to just come in, and they're just going to whisk you away. They're just going to take you to where you're meant to go. That can sound scary, but it's not about control, right? It's about letting go. It's about surrender. It's about trust. And part of the trust piece is knowing that life is here to guide you, that life deeply loves you, that every evolutionary pull, every gravitational pull is here to lead you into your highest. It's just, can you receive it? Are you going to resist it, or are you going to let it come in? Are you going to feel it fully all the way through? We have capacities, and we have to expand beyond our current capacity to grow ourselves. So, where most men have been living in their head and out of their body. Their capacity for emotional content is extremely limited. This is why they'll be like, she's too much. But actually, he's supposed to be the one that allows the too much to come in so that he can ultimately utilize that for example, evolutionary process, for creating a new paradigm, for expanding and growing himself into the man that he is meant to be and become. But if he villainizes emotions, if he's like, emotions are weakness, he's never going to actually fully integrate in this feminine wisdom that allows him to mature and develop into what it is that he is. And then the feminine will ongoingly feel like what I teach as the missing masculine. Where the fuck is the masculine? The masculine is missing. Where is he coming in to receive me? All of this infiniteness, this fullness. Some of the fear here, which is understandable, is that when a woman is misusing her emotional body, that is coming through the wounded feminine. Just like I said, there's wounded masculine relative to the mind, there's wounded feminine relative to the emotional body. And so, what a lot of women have done is that they will use a manipulation through the emotional body connected to victimhood. So the masculine, more often than not, is put into a perpetrator role. And his mind has a lot of punisher and shame stuff. Like he's got to really unravel so much of that in order to descend down and become a safe space. So, like when the masculine is doing this dissension process and he's coming down from mind, there's this, there are these beliefs that have been pushed onto him of he is a perpetrator, and the masculine as a collective has held a lot of perpetration inside of it, violence and war and other forms of abuse. And so the masculine in his process of dissension will begin to actually see so much of that and like, oh my God, I created harm here and here and here and here. It's a lot, you guys. It's a lot. Like love and compassion for the men who are willing to really descend in and go through that. He will start to feel and sense and see the full ache and devastation, to include as it relates to feminine ache. And in that space, he will feel like, I am unsafe. I'm an unsafe man. I am unsafe. This is a part of why men more often will occupy avoidant attachment structures. And then for the feminine, it's more of the insecure, because that's a part of the victimhood. And so the wounded feminine, she misuses the emotional body in order to manipulate men, which also reaffirms this perpetrator pattern. You got to break through codependence, you guys. I can't tell you how important it is. It's something that I teach in the Integrative Evolutionary. It's something that I facilitate in my one-on-one work. It's something that I have taught in my course, ILLUMED Womb. Like, this is essential. You have to be able to see and identify what codependency actually is. And it is far greater than what you're going to find in a psychology book. Like, codependency also has energetic impacts, and there's a lot of complexity there to unravel. And you really want to unravel that inside of your body. Your body. You'll feel it. You'll feel it coming out of your body. It's nuts. So the feminine will go into more of the victimhood, and she will misuse the emotions in order to manipulate men. And so part of the difficulty with that is that as a man is unraveling this programming, and the mental body puts him on a pedestal, it gives him a false sense of egoic power that he is beyond her, and he actually surrenders into the current of the goddess, he will have to learn how powerful the feminine actually is. He will have to see the full extent of her medicine He will have to receive her. He will have to integrate her into his life. And as he does that, he starts to notice what is the true feminine versus the false feminine, but he has to go through all of these aches and pains and betrayals relative to the false feminine because part of that imprints into his body and his emotions, going, you can't trust them. They will manipulate you. And that all comes from the wounded feminine. That's not the true feminine. That's not the true feminine form of the feelings and the feeling sensations. Feeling intelligence is far greater than mental body intelligence because mental body intelligence has a lot of limitations. Emotional body doesn't have those limitations. It's the infiniteness of the ocean. It's same thing, masculine, feminine. Masculine is linear, feminine non-linear. He is structure, she is formless. So there is a vastness to the emotional body that can't be held in the mental body because it has more boxes. You can feel it. That you can feel when you sense into the emotional body, you can feel what I'm talking about. Expansion. Oh, mental limitations. So we want to expand the mind through the infiniteness of the feeling body as it's integrated with it. Now we come into the higher mind. Now we're starting to enter like states, like high level connectivity and telepathy. That's just a singular example. So when women are in relationship to men, oftentimes they are sensing beyond what that man is currently. A woman can sense into his patterns. A woman can sense where he is, his potential. A woman can sense these pockets within him that he's not seeing through the limitations of his mind. And oftentimes this will become a contorted narrative that she is nagging. And it's like, no, she is your muse. She is your inspiration for your expansion. She is the map that you are meant to attune to so that you can come into your full sense of alignment. There's so much medicine from the feminine that is being rejected based on masculine resistance. And so I'm saying, okay, this is the way that you navigate this process, but in your own individual process between your thinking and your feeling. Okay. The other part of this is the collective tide piece. I've spoken about it a few times now. I keep pointing to it because it's very, very important, which is that this disconnection, so this kind of dissociation I'm talking about that elevates the mind over feeling, the heart feels, right? So the masculine is meant to descend down into the heart and the feeling body. Now, as he does that, the masculine is an anchor, and there's an anchor that attaches to the masculine heart that goes heart, and it just drops deep. This is a part of his dissension process. Once he hits that space, he becomes a safe place. He is so deeply present. He's not dissociative. He's not he's not amnesic in moments. He can't remember conversations that you had with him, or like all of a sudden he's contorting the narrative into something through his own conditioning that's not even what you said. Right? Are you hearing me, men? Because these are common patterns for you. And the feminine is on the other side of these, is a part of the ache that she has experienced. And I want to hold compassion for her and acknowledgement, because she is providing love. And there are times where what she's receiving back is projection and warfare, not love, because your own shame is looping in your mind and it's not allowing you to fully meet her here and meet yourself here. So as the masculine is being called into this dissension process and he begins to occupy the heart, what happens is that he's occupying what I teach as the missing masculine heart. And so as he descends in here, there's a physical heart that is in form, physical form, okay? And it's on the feminine side of the body. And there's a formless heart that is masculine that's on the masculine side of the body. And these, once he descends in, there becomes the feedback loop. It's actually a course correction and collective humanity that brings back in this sacred figure eight coding. So instead of disconnection, there's fluidity and connection between both of them. And as that happens, this comes online and his anchor lands to ground. And what this brings is more heartedness. Heartedness is also connected to connection. There's empathy, there's understanding, there's consideration, there's reverence, there's honor, there's integrity. All of these things are absolutely essential. I can feel my heart expanding right now. I've been doing a lot of heart work. So when I said I'm in my feels today, that's why I've been doing a lot of heart work. There's a lot pouring out of me. And this is also connected to this process because as the masculine comes in to occupy this space, his body and the heart, the feminine can finally release and let go of so much that she has singularly been holding on to, which is a lot. She's already in the infinite space. She can hold a lot, but this is not for her to hold because she's been asked to hold what is not hers, what has been his, as he is not occupying himself in this space. Just want us to feel that for a moment. Like genuinely feel into the masculine's arrival. His arrival changes everything because his arrival is that anchor that creates material. So what that means is that where the false structures, okay, that have been occupying vastly the mental space, this patriarchal matrix is very much so constructed here. All of those structures have to collapse. And every man that goes through this process is collapsing those structures inside of his energetic and physical body. Again, it's a lot. And then his arrival brings presence, it brings truth. His arrival houses the feminine integrative coding because he has had to go through the process of letting her lead to come back home to himself and to his heart and to his body and to his path and to his purpose. And so, where these structures have been vastly in the mental body and not including the feminine, absolutely suppressing her, making her invisible in every way possible, it suddenly in his process brings her back online. She's now included in the process as she always was meant to be. She is the origination of all of life. Of course, she's supposed to be included. And so, as a man does that and he's collapsing these structures that are vastly in the mind, and he starts coming home to his own soul and to his body, and there's an attunement now with the feminine, and he is deeply present, he begins to anchor in the true coding for the structures that are meant to be built as inspired by the feminine as the lead and the muse of the unseen. So it takes the feminine core key codes, her harmony, and it starts to formulate those harmonies into structure to recreate the systems so that the systems are not the systems we see today, which do not care for life. These systems have been harming life, children, parents, literally everyone. Everyone is impacted by the harm that's been created by these systems, including those at the top. And then the masculine in this integrative state, instead, he is holding care for all of life. So everything he starts to build is built in greater alignment with the feminine's inclusion. The feminine is meant to be the muse to every system and every structure that is built. So when we look at the patriarchal matrix and she's not included in it, that's why we see all of this harm that we see systemically happening, and we see happening in families, and we see happening in relationships, and we also see it inside of ourselves, inside of our bodies, as in mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual, etheric, all of the bodies. It impacts us at every layer. So when he comes down and he starts to anchor this, we're starting to see, okay, this is the truth of humanity. And the truth of humanity is not that we are meant to be disconnected from one another. It's not that we're meant to be disconnected from ourselves. It's not that we're meant to be disconnected from our emotional body or any of our bodies. It's that we're meant to be here to fully integrate more than any other species that I personally know that exists in the universe and omniverse. We are here for full level integration, which is what I lead and what I teach and what you are receiving today through this teaching transmission. We're meant to showcase to not just ourselves, but to all of life how integrated and full we can truly be. And what is created with that. The heart field is just so palpable. I just like want to keep taking pauses because when you're in a space of a transmission like this, you really want to make sure you're not just taking in the words and you're doing so, especially with your mind. You want to take it into your body. You want to feel the sensations energetically. That's a part of that higher intelligence I'm talking about, of the feminine intuition, like she is feeling in her body so much. And where she's been desensitized, that's been a response to a really harmful society where she doesn't feel safe and where she's told that she needs to suppress herself. Like when you really come through, when a woman comes through feminine initiation, she realizes like how deeply connected the sensations in her body are to everything that is moving within her and also around her. And this allows her to see more clearly the things that are going on inside of her and around her. This is why she is so perceptive. This is why the feminine can be like, oh, this is the pattern, like, or this is something that I can sense is off right now. I might even know why it's off, but it is off right now. And it's a man's duty to lean into that, to value her feminine intuition and wisdom. But if you lean into a woman that is doing this through the false, wounded feminine, you will be misled, right? Because she's in manipulation. She's not in clarity. She's not in an understanding of the masculine sovereignty. She's in a wounded feminine state of enmeshment, attempting to control the masculine or men or whoever, everyone in her life to some degree, to meet her needs that she's not willing to fully own herself. So that's a part of the feminine's process. And so it also calls a man into discernment, because I'm not saying in this teaching transmission that if you're a man, you need to follow whatever woman is in your life. No, what is she representing? What is she housing? What is she holding? Is it true? Is it wounded? Is it a combination of both? Like, can she actually guide you through her feminine intuition, or will she utilize that to manipulate you? That is only something that you can know by being in your body. Do you see what I'm saying? You will not be able to figure that out with your mind. You will not. So as man descends into body and into heart, we put back in these heart pieces that create connection where there's been disconnection, wholeness where there's been fragmentation, empathy when there's been a severe lack of it. Severe lack of it. And we begin to relate to one another in a deeply healthy way, in a way where we understand that any impact that we make on another person that harms them also impacts us. And it'll happen instantaneously. That has been my experience ever since I arrived to Earth. But that's not been everyone's experience, because they didn't have this heart piece that I'm talking about that I have had to occupy because of my role on Earth. Now, in this process, whenever we're like working with the heart's also connected to the lungs. It's also connected to your wings. Um, and this is connected to grief and grief processing. Where there is love, love will expand you. And where there's love, there's also risk of loss, and there is grief. And so both are evolutionary processes that are meant to expand us. And when men have been avoiding this sort of process, they've maintained limitations within inside of themselves and within inside of society and within inside of relationships and family systems. And as he really, really deeply arrives, those limitations fall off and we start to begin to have far more expansion, far more creation, far more health internally and relationally, and family systems and institutionalized education, medical systems, on and on and on. We need his arrival. We need your arrival. The men that are meant to lead this process. I am the woman that also is meant to lead and guide and teach you through these processes. So make sure that you are stepping into this rare to find resource that is here for you. Just take a moment to feel the heart feel it. It's just so palpable. So palpable. And the thing is that when I'm presenting this through my body and energetically, it's offering an opportunity for the blocks and the barriers and the things that have been preventing you from coming into the space of your heart in a shared field with other humans where it feels safe. It starts to give space so that those things can melt off and melt away. So really do like pause and take it in. Like the medicine is here for you to receive genuinely and safely. I am the true feminine. It's like just take a breath and then let it out. And another breath in. And like just relax into your body and open. You have to open and be receptive. That's a part of this feminine intelligence. You open, you're receptive. When you open and you're receptive, like if you're a man and you have emotional blocks and it's like really hard for you to cry, there's this process of opening and receiving that has been blocked. And how you start that is by taking your attention from your mind. I've had other newsletters about this, from your mind, and you begin to descend into your physical body. You start to bring the attention into the body. You do mindfulness scans. You create a connection, a reconnection with your physical body in this way where the feminine, intuitive, and integrative feeling body intelligence in your sensations are here. Reception, opening, feeling all feminine. And it's the medicine that you need. There were just some clearings that wanted to happen then. This is the process that men are ongoingly going to be called into in 2025. It's going to go on for longer than that, but kind of speaking to the men that are at the leading edge here and those that are being called to deepen, deepen, deepen into this dissension process. Definitely make sure that you are reaching out relative to resources. I have a single session, a one-on-one, that is a shamanic heart reclamation that helps take you from above your head or in your head down into your body. And then it's really incredible shamanic heart work and attunements that will help you so much in this process. If you're a woman that is listening to this, share this video with your man or your male friends. Like, let them know that this work is here, it's available for him. And if you are a woman, I didn't talk about it as much in this process, but his dissension goes from mind to heart. And what's happening for the feminine is it's taking her from solar plexus down into sacral and root. And so it's taking her power center and it's dropping her power into her womb to be held. Part of this, and this last part that I'm going to mention, is that when he does this and he goes from feeling unsafe and in this perpetrator kind of space, right? Like he's been labeled as a perpetrator here. I'm unsafe and I create harm in my contortions of narratives, chain looping, all of that has created harm. Okay. I'm in ownership. I'm willing to descend down and be in compassion with myself and enter into my body. Now, as I've arrived into the heart and I have done this work of attunement and I'm understanding these feminine integrative pieces that were missing, he becomes this deeply, deeply safe space. And that safe space is supportive to her rising and coming into her power to really illuminate, to showcase her full emanation, because now there's something to hold her. When men do this, and I can't get too deep in this, but this is a part of my teachings, this is the work of actually anchoring in the nervous system. And the masculine is responsible for anchoring in the collective nervous system, not just his personal nervous system. So when men do this work, it impacts the entire collective, including the collective nervous system. And women begin to feel that it's like, oh, he has arrived. There's an anchor here. I can safely be illuminated. I can become visible. Remember, I said that she was being pressed into the suppression realms, right? Like it's like she doesn't get to exist. Now he's bringing in the structure and all the aligned coding, and she is able to fully exist. Is this big? And it's going to touch everyone, some in different ways, but relative these collective themes I'm talking about, it's ultimately going to touch all of us, whether you know it or not, whether you decide to really consciously engage in the process or not. It will impact you. It's going to impact all of us. I hope that this teaching transmission has been supportive to you. Feel free to let me know how it has. Also, feel free to share this video with anyone you think that it would resonate with. Go ahead and check out my service offerings between the Integrative Evolutionary, my membership group, my one-on-one work like my shamanic heart reclamation, my womb reflection session, which I have for women. This will help her in the attunement of her womb, the clearings that will be happening, and also to house and hold her sovereign power to bring her unobstructed expression here to earth. As always, so much love to each and every one of you.